everybody, and welcome back to You Can't Win. This is Tom here, and I'm joined by Don as usual. And today we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite subject, sleep. Sleep is something that Don in particular has had some problems with lately, especially, but like throughout his life. And I've had some issues with like insomnia and stuff when I was younger. And I don't know, sleep is like it's a very mundane topic, but it's also kind of an interesting thing, especially like dreams. That's something that's always been pretty interesting to me, and kind of like a weird thing that happens to us that I don't know. There's a lot to be explored there, I think. Islam actually has a lot to say about dreaming and sleeping and stuff that is a little bit different than the way that we tend to think about it these days.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Don, what's been going on? I know you've been having a lot of insomnia lately and stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's like an ongoing thing. It's always happened throughout my sort of like adult life. I have a lot of I always call it getting my days flipped or something like that kind of thing. Where like sometimes I'll fall asleep at like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. and then sleep through the day and then find it hard to like get back on a schedule, and that happened when I was like in things too. Like if I had sometimes if I was like working, or like if I was in school, that would happen a lot too. And it's hard for me to sort of organize my days around that kind of stuff because it just happens a lot. And I guess people like the flippant kind of thing to that is to say, well, yeah, but if the consequences were enough, maybe you wouldn't do that kind of thing. But the kind of scary part is that it's not that is not really panned out in terms of like things that are like consequential to me or that I really care about because of like anxiety and stuff, and kind of compound. And so I mean it's during quarantine, it's kind of easy to not have much of going on anyway, so it's I can see how that does affect it to some extent. But I also have like just health issues that impact that as well, which is one big thing is that like I feel like I have to nap every day for about 2 or 3 hours, and during like the afternoon, or usually, I mean, it's in the afternoon if that's how it works. And I think that is caused by my medications, basically. So
yeah,
that is something that I mean, you would think that because it has something to do, like I thought it had something to do with blood sugar or something, but I've been tested for that kind of stuff, like diabetes and all that kind of thing, and that doesn't really come up in the blood work at all. So I feel like it's something to do with the serotonin levels in my brain or something like that. I don't know. But I get to this point where, I'm just walking around doing my thing during the day, and then I get to a point where maybe like 3 p.m. or something where I get tired to the point where like I can't really think straight. Like I can't really think about what I'm doing or anything like that. And then just have to sleep kind of thing. So that's made things hard before in the past for a long time. Because number one, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't understand why I was getting tired suddenly, and I might get like mad at myself for sleeping instead of doing something, or it felt like it took a long time to just accept that like it's a health problem that I have, and it's hard to sort of deal with. But it makes it hard to like say go into like town for the day or something, and then because at some point I might just have to sleep, or I might just get so tired that I feel like I can't really interact with people or do anything. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And recently what's happened is that like some days like I just I have like a like a thing where like I kind of focus on something, and it's almost like tunneling or something. It's just I get stuck into a rut kind of thing with whatever I'm doing, like if I'm on my phone or posting or whatever kind of thing. It's interesting because I only have like a few hours a day where I feel like alert, like I like fully like okay, I'm ready to do stuff. I'm eager to like go out there and do stuff kind of thing. And when it's not the case, I often feel like just tired and like sort of a bit out of it. And if in that case, just relaxing and doing something that I don't have to think about much, which is like posting for me, like just talking to people online or something. But then what happens is that it's hard for me to like get out of that stage of thinking kind of thing, I'll just be talking to people, and it'll be like 5 hours go by or something like that kind of thing, like it's like just a long period of time of doing that. And it's hard to like break out of that it's like OCD or something, or, like just hard to break out of that thing. Now, I don't think, I think a lot of those things are very common in general. I just feel like I'm probably on the extreme end for a lot of them.
Yeah, I can relate to some of that. Like for
Yeah.
me, like if I'm feeling like low energy during the day or something, and I just kind of don't get things going, and I start like playing a game on the computer or something like that, if I'm just like not kind of getting over that hump, it just doesn't happen. Like I'll physically feel the same way for the rest of the day. Like I just never take off. It's sort of like when you wake up and it's cold and you don't want to get out of bed because it's like warm and comfortable and stuff. It's sort of like that, but it just lasts the whole day,
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it'll get, it's not just tiredness. It's also like I almost like freeze in place kind of thing, where I can't, like my legs will fall asleep or something like that kind of thing, where I'm kind of like in a weird, awkward sitting position or something, and I just hold that position for hours or something like that kind of thing. It's like it kind of just becomes like I don't know, like a sort of like almost paralysis or something like that. I just can't get myself to do anything. Now, I should say, the positive thing, that this has gotten a lot better over the last 5-10 years. Like about 10 years ago or something, I was a lot worse about this kind of stuff because, number one, I had no idea what was going on. Number two, I didn't know how to regulate it at all. Like I didn't know what things I needed to do at different times to try to break the different habits or try to break certain thinkings and stuff. And, like I commonly have like this thing with insomnia where like I can't, I feel like falling asleep is somehow like almost dying or something. Like I start to feel like I can't fall asleep because it's like surrender to nothingness or something, and it starts to like, I start to get like almost paranoid thinking about it and start to really upset me. That still happens from time to time, but it's a lot easier for me to go, oh no, look. You can look at the evidence and, you've fallen asleep many times and it's been fine or whatever, like you can start to like think in probability terms too. You can be like, okay, well, what's the chance that you would actually die or something, like all that kind of stuff. Like,
sure.
And it kind of like irons it out a bit. But yeah, so I don't know, it's a strange thing, but the last day or two I've gotten out of the swing of it kind of thing with, I had like a normal sleep at night and I, felt good during the day and stuff and got some stuff done. But yeah, it's hard to like, it's hard to plan around it and hard to plan like what you're going to do. I don't know. People always say like, well, if you had to dig ditches or something, then it would be different kind of thing, like your body would just adjust or something. And I don't think that's true. I think there's a lot of people that just get eaten up by the sort of regime of time or whatever that we set up, what kind of thing. I feel like there's a lot of people that just don't, they fall through the cracks completely. I don't think it's like a thing of like self-discipline or something like that. So yeah.
I mean, it's also possible that there's some element of that that's true, but it may not be enough to overcome these other factors. Like there's a lot of things at play. So like when you get tired like that, does it feel the same as like if you just like stayed up like all night, like, and then you get tired? Like, is it the same sort of feeling or is it different somehow?
Yeah, no, it feels different. I mean, it feels, I guess it's similar, but like, it used to feel like more like sudden. I feel like it's evened out. It might, I mean, at some level, I feel like it has to have something to do with blood sugar or something like that kind of thing, or something around that. Like there's got to be some physical cause to it, obviously, other than just like the mental side, but it does also correlate with like irritation and things like that, like anxiety.
Yeah, I have noticed like when you are talking about, like things like anxiety for you being higher than normal and stuff like that, that it does seem like you have more problems with this stuff. Yeah.
And that was obviously a problem with stuff like going to school and stuff, because, I might sit through a class for an hour or so and then feel like I'm at my limit of just anxiety from just feeling like I'm in a panic situation or something like that there. And after that, I mean, I just want to go to sleep, like I just, I feel like totally exhausted. That's why like that's probably the central reason why I can't really hack that kind of thing. Cause it's like, you got to be able to sit in a seminar for 3 hours and be alert the whole time, at least theoretically, and then to feel like you're at your limit at 1 hour and then you have to go to sleep is not gonna, you can't do that as like a professor or something like that kind of thing, so.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's hard because it's hard to show that. I think, like, it's hard to think of how that compares to other things, because like at some level for like policy or for accommodations or anything like that for like a job or something, being like I sleep a lot and randomly sleep sometimes and getting anxious quickly and stuff like that, it's harder to accommodate as an employer or something like that than it is for something that's more stable or at least like episodic or something,
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to like think of how I would approach people and be like, well, theoretically, if I worked a few hours a week, I could do a job for you guys or something, but you have to kind of deal with all this kind of stuff. It's like, it's just not, the cost to them in terms of a return they would get, it's hard. So that's why I think that like something like writing and stuff sometimes fits, because I can just kind of shoot something off and make a few bucks off it or something. So, but yeah. I do think it is one of those things where it's like, it's not inevitable that would be the result, though. I do think that like if things become more accommodating in different ways and I find kind of like a great fit on something, I feel like I could theoretically eventually have a job that's just like a relatively normal kind of job or something. Like that wouldn't be impossible. It's just that there's so many things that would have to work out the exact right way kind of thing. So yeah,
you'd need like a little mini fridge full of 5-hour energy to keep you up.
Yeah, well, that was the thing too. You got to think that like so I'm at like 2 months now without any pop, right?
Oh right,
any,
yeah,
Coke Zero or anything like that.
Yeah, off the caffeine.
So for many years that's how I tried to manage things, was to just constantly drink caffeine to try to give myself a little bit of a boost in focus and stuff, and it worked. I mean, it's one of those things where it works at any given second, it feels like, but then the overall health effect is negative.
Yeah.
So it was probably a good idea that I did that. Although, I mean, one of the negative outcomes of that, not negative, but like just a fact kind of thing that has come true, is that like it turns out that like that wasn't causing, at least directly, all of the insomnia or something like that kind of thing. Because, if you're drinking a bunch of pop in a row and then you're like can't sleep or something like that, it's easy to blame it on the pop. But if it's not, if that's not what is happening, then there's got to be other things at play. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I used to have problems with insomnia when I was younger, like early 20s or so, and it has kind of just gone away. Like now I have no problem falling asleep, and I think a lot of that was due to just like kind of a general anxiety and becoming kind of just getting over that kind of stuff. And I think, that's a different situation, I think. But like, I don't know, I like my mind used to race at night. It would be hard for me to like switch off and go into sleep mode and stuff, and now my mind is always off, so it's very easy to fall asleep.
yeah For sure.
But yeah, like all the different, people have all these different things that work for them, and they're always recommending like, oh, this is the one thing that works and stuff. But for me, nothing ever worked. Like even some of the, I have always like any drug that is basically any drug has always kept me up until it's kind of like run through my system and I don't feel it anymore. Like people talk about like drinking until they pass out or whatever. Whenever I drank, I could never fall asleep if I could feel the alcohol in my system. I would have to kind of like, I would just be up for hours, just like, even if I was trying to sleep, just laying in bed for whatever reason. So like any drugs people would recommend for that, like Benadryl, I remember trying. Some people were really big on that, and that was the worst. Like that just kept me up all night. And it was just like that for everything. And the only thing that ever made a lick of difference was melatonin supplements. And I kind of like figure that that's because it's like a more of like a natural thing, in the sense of like that's what your body produces to make you go to sleep. So I kind of figure like that was what was doing it. But Yeah, now I if anything, my only problem is that like I will just avoid going to sleep. I'll just stay up too late because I'm just like not using enough energy through the day that I don't end up feeling tired, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's part of the reason why I need to start exercising and stuff, is that I think that will help. I mean, it does. When I do exercise, it's usually easier to fall asleep and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think that's part of it, is that if you're just kind of lounging around, it's easy to sleep a lot, and it's also easy just to not fall asleep yet. So yeah.
Yeah. The past few days I've felt like I've gotten really good rest, and I think it has something to do with like, so normally Tabs and I have separate beds because I find I get really hot like when I'm sleeping. So and then if I'm too warm, like I can't fall asleep, like it's really uncomfortable for me. So we usually sleep separately, but now it's so cold that we actually want to sleep together because so we can just like stay warm. And I've just fall asleep just fine, and I wake up feeling much more rested than I have been for whatever reason. I think that I'm not sure. It might also have to do like maybe I'm not moving around in the bed as much at night. Like I tend to kind of like toss and turn a little bit, and I think I'm not doing that. So maybe that is also helping or whatever. But I don't know. I just thought it's kind of it's weird, like the things that kind of make you feel rested and things that don't. Like sometimes it doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense, and it seems like we're so fragile. Like sleep seems so important, and then it, for whatever reason, it can just be so difficult.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of strange factors like that play into it. I mean, you've been complaining about your mattress and stuff too, I guess.
Yeah.
So you're looking at maybe replacing it tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow we are going to drive out to this like little store. It's like a little mom and pop mattress store, and they seem to have I don't know. I have a very good impression based on what the mattress nerds online have to say about it. Apparently there's like this community of like mattress enthusiasts.
Yeah.
And they say this one place here in Illinois is one of the best in the country. And the prices are good, and I'm going to check out the mattresses, just lay on them for a little bit. It's one of those things where it's like, I figure you can't really know. You have to kind of like sleep on it for like a month, and then you'll know if it's good or not. But the price is right, and I don't know. I just have a good feeling based on what I've read about them and stuff, and I'm happy to like support like a one of these like local producers sort of a thing instead of like some big brand. I figure that those bigger brands are the ones that are more likely to be ripping me off on something that's kind of BS. So looking forward to it. I mean, if anything, it's just a new mattress, so that's probably going to be better than what I have, just for that reason alone.
Do you think you'll get a bigger one, or?
I'll probably stick with the same size. I got a full size, and that's big enough, I think. King is a little bit too much. I don't see the benefit of it over like a queen or a full. Full and queen are pretty much the same, aren't they? So
I didn't know that. I thought that queen is a bit bigger.
Maybe it's a little bigger, but I think they're pretty close. I don't know. Well, I guess I'll see tomorrow. But
sure.
King has always seemed like a little bit ridiculous, and then you get the disadvantages of like having to get it into the apartment and how much room it takes up in the room and all that kind of stuff. So
I've got like two mattresses that I use. One's twin, I think, and one is queen or something like that, and the queen is much more comfortable for me, I find. The twin, or like, I think it's either twin or full size or something like that, but it's just maybe twin, is feels tiny. I don't know.
Yeah,
especially for me. I don't know.
I used to sleep on a twin for a good while, and then when I got this one, I was like, I'll get the bigger one, and I can't sleep on a twin anymore. It just I feel like I'm falling off of it.
Sure. I'll have to think about this kind of stuff when I move out. So eventually, I don't know, kind of think of all the get like a giant rotating bed or something. So
have you ever checked out those like Japanese mats, you sleep on the floor, that whole thing?
Oh yeah, no, I haven't. No.
Some people really love it. They swear by it.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Not
feel
for
like
me.
it would cause depression. Yeah, I feel like it would. I think if I was sleeping on the floor, I'd be like, "This is not fun." I don't know.
I think you have to have a certain level of like weeb going on with you to really appreciate it. Like if that's your thing and you really like it because of that, then fine. But if not, it feels stupid.
Yeah. Do you have any like recurring dreams or anything like that?
I barely dream. I really, really rarely remember my dreams anymore. And
Oh, really?
I used to dream pretty vividly, but like for years, I just have not really dreamed. So no, I can't say that. And I've never had recurring dreams. Like that's never been a thing. Oh, actually, that's not true. When I was younger, I used to have this recurring like I don't even know if it was a dream, like because it would kind of start to happen when I was like still awake, sort of a thing. But it was this it was less like of a dream and more of like this sensation, this like feeling that I would get of it was really weird. It was like a feeling of it's hard to describe. The way I conceptualized it in my head was that I was like tied to a rocket or something like that. So it's like I was being forced, like there was some force pushing me forward that was a very powerful force, like a rocket, right? But at the same time, like I was like stuck and I couldn't move and I couldn't I don't know. It was extremely uncomfortable and frightening when I was young. Like I was like a little kid when I first started experiencing this thing, and it would I remember waking up from it a few times, and I think I remember my parents rushing into the bedroom because I was probably like like screaming or something. I don't really remember, but I could never really communicate exactly what it was that I was experiencing and stuff. I don't know, and that has just gone away. But I think that also had to do with like anxiety or something like that. Like I think it was some kind of it was related to that. Maybe not purely like a manifestation of those feelings or something, but it was something like that. And I looked around on the internet one day trying to figure out like, does this happen to anyone else, kind of a thing. And it seems like some people were talking about something that seemed kind of similar, like related to sleep paralysis, but it wasn't quite like that because I wasn't physically paralyzed. It was just like once I was up, I could move, but it was just the feeling that I couldn't when I was experiencing that. I don't know. It's very hard to describe.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I would have like sort of that sort of waking dream or something, or like I would also fall asleep and like I would be kind of like in between sometimes too or whatever, and I'd be convinced that like aliens were around me and stuff like that, and like I'd have like I like would see them going into the basement or something, or I would see them around me and stuff or whatever, and it was very strange because it was just like a dream or something, but it felt like real. So I was like, oh man, this is scary. I don't know. That was a early sort of thing of that sort of like anxiety and stuff where like it affected me that way. Yeah, recently I've been having really annoying dreams. Like just really, I wake up and I'm so like pissed off at them kind of thing. Is that like what happens is that in the dream I'm like back in school or something like that, and I'm taking in university usually, and then taking like math courses, and in the dream I already have my master's, and there's some reason why I'm taking the classes but I don't need to, kind of thing. It's like I'm in a program and I'm in a full-time program, but there's some reason why like I'm just taking the courses, but
so you can inherit
really
your dad's company.
Yeah,
Get your
like
GED.
Yeah. And in the dream I'm always like failing them badly, and I have to like go around talking to different people about like how I'm failing out and trying to like navigate that, and while trying to remind myself, I'm like, no, don't worry about it, you already have your master's and stuff. And then I wake up and I'm like, that just ruined my night. Why would I dreamed about not being good at math for hours or whatever, like every few nights or something like that. So it's just been really bothering me. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously like, dream analysis stuff. It's not that hard to do because I've had those motions a lot in the past in different ways of like, doing badly in courses or,
Sure.
just having problems and stuff. So I can kind of see where it all comes from and different anxieties about getting work done and all that kind of stuff. But like, very, very annoying. I don't know.
I used to
So,
dream about doing like just chores, and nothing would it would be very realistic. It would just be like me folding laundry, and there would be nothing remarkable about it, and that would be my dream. Maybe that's why I don't remember my dreams anymore. They've gotten so mundane I don't even remember them. It's
yeah.
just like really, I've had very strange dreams too. That's not like the only kind of dream that I've had, but those,
Sure.
and for some reason those would often stick out as being like more vivid. Maybe because they're like more real or something. I don't know. Because a lot of the dreams I used to have would not even be like describable. It would be very like amorphous and just kind of like, I don't even know, like just like a swirl of colors or something. That it's not even really that, but it wouldn't really have any substance in the sense of like there weren't like there wasn't a place or characters or even like a definable like emotion or anything going on. It would just be like just this strange thing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So, dream analysis in Islam and stuff. Do you want to say some of the stuff that you're kind of bringing up that like it's a bit different than our sort of Western?
Sure. I feel like we've maybe talked about this before. I feel now that I'm
just briefly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, one of the things you were talking about before about like this fear you have or this anxiety you have about like falling asleep and how it's kind of like a death thing, and I think a lot of people probably thought of that Nas lyric, I never sleep because sleep is a cousin of death. That's actually a hadith, I think. I think that comes from a hadith. Yeah.
I know it's also sleep is the brother of death is from Conrad or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So, but sleep is the cousin of death might be a hadith, I guess you said?
Maybe. Maybe. I mean, the thing is sometimes there's these sayings that become popularized around the world, and like a lot of things get kind of just written up as hadith, and I don't know what how authentic like that would be if it is a hadith, and I could be misremembering it, but anyway, like that there is just like the ideas about sleeping and dreaming in Islam are kind of interesting. There is the idea that when you sleep, God takes your soul up, and when you wake up, he puts it back. And for people who die in their sleep, obviously he's not putting it back, So in that way, it is exactly like death. Like you basically are dying, and your experiences of dreaming and stuff are real in a sense. Like they are. You are experiencing this kind of other dimension of reality, and it's not just like, we kind of think about it in this like scientific-y kind of way of like, oh, it's your brain processing, thoughts and memories and stuff, or it's just like this random jumble of things that your brain is doing or something like that. But in like a traditional in a traditional Islamic theology or cosmology, it's kind of like a glimpse into what maybe the afterlife is like, or maybe the barzakh, like the place that you exist in after you die and before the day of judgment. Kind of like a existence without the physical world, your soul is taken up and it exists in like this other dimension, and it's not the same as when it's your soul and your body working together in this world. So, so that's interesting to me. And dream interpretation is a kind of a big deal in the Muslim world. And I read a very interesting book about it. That was like an anthropological study done in Egypt about dream interpreters. And it's something that has kind of waned a little bit in the past couple hundred years, especially with the advent of like psychoanalysis and Freudian kind of thinking and stuff, these kinds of ideas have sort of lost some of their currency, and people, especially like in the middle and upper classes, are more interested in like therapy and psychologists and stuff like that.
Sure.
And less interested in like just going to dream interpreters. But yeah, there's a very like deep and an expansive history of dream interpretation in the Muslim world. I don't know all that much about it. I don't know how similar or dissimilar it is to Western dream interpretation. Like, I don't really know what the situation was in like medieval Europe or whatever. But the things I do know about it is that like the first interpretation that you get of your dream is the one that is true. So people would...
Yeah, you did mention this on the other one too. I remember that. Yeah, I remember you were talking about that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I find that interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because it's sort of it's like, you know, people will be very deliberate and careful about who they go to for their interpretation, because they know that whoever they go to, it's going to tell them whatever it means, and that will be true. And it's kind of interesting in this sort of like it's almost like a Schrodinger's cat kind of a thing or something. It's like once you don't know what the dream means, and you know, until you like open that box up kind of a thing. So it's sort of like the observer affects the outcome, sort of a kind of a quantum kind of a thing going on there. So that, I don't know, dreaming is just weird to me. I now I'm remembering that episode a little bit more. I think I talked about how the prophet said that the closest thing to like the experience of being a prophet, of like receiving revelation and all that kind of stuff, is that we have like as normal people is dreaming. And I think he said that dreaming is like 1/64th of prophethood or of prophecy, and that prior to being a prophet, he had 2 months straight of what's called true dreams, where he would dream something very vividly and specifically during the night, and the next day it would all come true. And that would happen every single day for 2 months, and that was leading up to this revelation that occurred during his like meditation in the caves and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's also stuff about like where dreams come from. So there's true dreams, which are from God. There are false dreams, which are from Shaitan, Satan, you know, the devil. And then there are other dreams which are just from your ego. So there is like kind of that idea that we have about dreams as being like this just jumble of kind of pseudo random kind of stuff that our brain creates. That's a part of the traditional Islamic thinking about dreams, is that most of them are just that. But there are dreams that are specifically like an evil kind of a thing. Like there's somehow jinn or Satan or whatever has put these in there to frighten you, to make you do bad things, to kind of like, you know, to shake you up. And then there are other ones that are sort of like the reverse of that, where it's God and angels trying to help you and to show you things and stuff like that. So the way you can tell the difference is a true dream is it would always put you towards good behaviors, and a bad dream is something that would always put you towards bad behaviors. So so that's like the basic idea about it. And then there's also some there's a lot of stuff about seeing the prophet in your dreams, and that if you see the prophet in your dreams, that is really him. Like he has actually visited you. That it's impossible for a jinn or for your own mind to like create a fake manifestation of the prophet in your dreams. That when he appears, it's true. Whatever he says is true. Now, what's odd about this is that some people will, you know, through history have come up with like weird things, like, oh, the prophet told me I don't have to pray, or something like that. And then, you know, the scholars have said like, well, that wasn't true. So I'm not really sure how that works, because obviously, how did the prophet really appear? I think they say something like, well, that wasn't he didn't actually appear to you. You must have like mistook that somehow. Like, you know, so the mistake or you're at fault less than the actual prophet appearing or whatever. But yeah, generally it's a positive thing. Obviously, when people see the prophet in their dreams, it's usually like something that makes them, it strengthens their faith, or it's some kind of like some advice that they wouldn't have taken otherwise, and it's, you know, they received some kind of like good words of advice or something somehow that way. And people see their like sheikhs and stuff, so there's actually like Sufis especially have managed to like communicate with each other through dreams and stuff, which is pretty bizarre. I don't really know what to make of all that. I'm sure a lot of it is kind of just like woo woo nonsense, but there's I don't know, there's got to be I'm willing to accept that there's probably things that have occurred within dreams, especially with people who are like way up on like level 99 of like mysticism or whatever, that are doing things and able to like use their dreams in ways that you or I or you know, just some random person wouldn't be able to, and it would just seem completely like some kind of silly superpower fantasy thing. But you know, I'm willing to accept that there's probably some kind of level beyond that people can actually do stuff, because there's like lucid dreaming, you know. I've had friends who've been able to do that, and that's pretty cool. And that's just like stoner idiots can do that. So what can like actually practiced mystics do, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I have had where I do feel like I have some control in the dream ever so often. I usually get really angry for some reason that I know that I'm in a dream, and I just start punching everyone around me. But I don't know. I think that's my initial reaction, and then trying to wake up. But like, yeah, I mean, I tend to know more about like I don't really know much about like the Christian view on dreams and stuff like that. But like, I know a bit more about like the psychoanalytic kind of side of thing, where that kind of stuff was one reason why I didn't really read much Freud at first, because I was like, or like related things, because I just thought it was like silly kind of stuff, and he has like very elaborate wordplay kind of things he always goes through, like just you know, person using a certain term in a thing and then going, you mean this, that means this kind of thing, you know. And that always seemed a bit kind of absurd to me, because it's just like, you know, I don't know, it doesn't seem very psychological or medical kind of thing, really. It just
always sounded weird, like horoscopes or something to me, like the same kind of level of validity or whatever. But I understand it more now that I know what like psychoanalysis is as like a practice. Is because it's like the reason why dreams are so important for that is that, you know, you learn the most from someone in terms of analysis from their mistakes in what they're saying, kind of thing, like their slip-ups, their sort of errors, confusions, assumptions that they make that relate things that don't really seem related, that kind of thing. All the sort of you know, you're basically getting them to talk for a long period of time. It's almost like interrogation by a police officer or something like that, where they just keep asking you questions until eventually you make a mistake, and they can kind of hone in on that. And then so that's really, I think that the comparison is, it's like, you know, talking to a police officer, it's like, you know, you get into this mode where you're talking about dreams. Dreams will help you make mistakes. You know, it's like talking about something that you feel less on guard about most of the time, so that you're like, oh, I had this dream and it did this, and it's something that maybe you would never have said otherwise. It's like a way of getting around that almost. It's like getting you to talk about some thing that is still psychological. It's still part of your sort of psychic makeup in some way, but it helps you reveal things about yourself that you wouldn't have otherwise, kind of thing. So that makes sense to me, that as like a strategy kind of thing. And Zizek has some funny things about that kind of stuff, where he said stuff like, you know, when the analysis sort of started, I guess, you know, there's this cliche that like, if you say a certain thing, then if you like, say if you have like a woman in your dream, then it must be your mother or something like that. That was like the cliche. And he said that patients now, because of all the cultural baggage around this kind of stuff, will be like,
now I dreamed of a woman, and I know that must mean it's my mother or something like that. You know, like they kind of like come prepared to speak about the things in the way that they think that Freudian terms are supposed to be, and then he's like, that's how you know it's not about their mother or something like that kind of thing. It's like, I don't know, like it's kind of a funny, weird situation where people are self-analyzing now to the point where it adds a layer of confusion on top of things for the psychoanalysts. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I find that kind of stuff kind of interesting, the whole dream analysis kind of thing. It's hard to sort of negotiate with in terms of like any sort of actual rigorousness or whatever, but like I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that's part of the interesting thing about it, is that it's like this domain where we can't just easily penetrate it with like modern science and reduce it down to like brain chemicals and stuff like people kind of want to. It doesn't really get to the actual like interesting parts of dreaming, you know, like if you can just explain it away as like, oh well, your brain is just doing this, like this part of your brain is more active at night because, you know, it seems to have like there's some kind of maintenance that goes on. It's like I always thought of it as like defragmenting your brain, you know, like you used to do with your hard drive or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, that could be true. I'm not saying that that's like a lie or something, but that's not really what's interesting about it. It's like, why? It's more like the stuff that we produce in our dreams. Like, what is that, and why is it the way that it is? And there seems to be connections between like the waking world and the dream world and stuff that is it doesn't seem like purely random, you know, like there's it like we maintain a sense of self, and there's things that we see in dreams that we have in our like even my boring dreams about doing chores and stuff, like that's clearly not random, you know what I mean? Like that's my those are my chores, those were in my home, you know what I mean? So if it was random, it would be like all kinds of different stuff, you know, but it's all stuff that is from my life, and like why is that there and not something else? And yeah, I don't know, it's interesting, but there's not much you can say about it with like definitive evidence, and there's no solid methodology in the way that we have with like medical science or something to look at it. So
yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean it does make me feel like medical science is still at a very basic level or something like that kind of thing. I wonder if like in the future we'll be able to piece apart these things a bit easier. I don't know how you would be able to, but maybe, I don't know, some sort of computer thing or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Create an AI that can like replicate dreams somehow, and then you can tell what's going on based on what is going on in the AI or something.
Yeah,
just have like a million different little computers developing a dream state, and you're like, oh, that matches what's going on in your brain, let's see what's going on there.
Yeah,
I don't know, that sounds like some Elon Musk thing, but
yeah. Was there anything else? I don't know.
I don't know, not really. You have any tips for people dealing with insomnia, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, probably just do things, I guess. Like just don't try to fight it directly, just try to, you know, exercise, eat right if you can, stuff like that. Figure out ways of turning off your devices or whatever, you know. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff, but that's just, you know.
Yeah, I guess so. I never really there wasn't like some trick that worked for me really either, so I don't have a lot of like good advice on that. I just kind of like just worked out after a while. So
yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just like a nice thing to hear, that it's not something you necessarily have to live with the rest of your life. If that's something you're dealing with and you find pretty bad to deal with, and things just do go away sometimes. But you got to keep trying stuff, I guess. I'm not suggesting to give up on those things.
Yeah.
But anyway, should we jump into the questions?
Sure.
Okay, Don. For Catholics, laughing and smiling are sins. Sorry, Don. Your whole life you've been sending people straight to hell. After all, sorrow and resignation are the only true Christian paths to redemption. May God strike down all comedians.
Actually, Pope Francis has like a prayer, and I can't remember who it's from originally, but like maybe Saint Francis of Assisi. I don't know, John Christo. I don't know, but like it's like a prayer for a sense of humor. He reads it every day in the morning. It's like
that's cool.
It's like basically like I should laugh at more things.
I like
that. I think that's he's been doing it for many years, I guess. And I don't know. I think that's probably a good practice, whatever, to pray for a sense of humor instead of trying to be all glum all the time and stuff like that. Although there's probably a place for that. I don't know. There are a lot of saints and stuff that just cry all the time and stuff. I don't know. I can kind of understand that, but yeah.
I think you go too far in either direction, and it's you get a problem of like having too big an ego. Like you either take yourself too seriously, or you don't take anyone else seriously to the point of which you're kind of like making everything about you. You know, like no one else matters except me and my amusement at all this stuff that's happening around me, kind of a thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I like that prayer for a sense of humor.
Yeah.
I can get behind that. So someone asks, is it haram to eat pork in Minecraft? This is kind of like a meme in Muslim Twitter, and people like not eating pork in Minecraft and then being like, oh, I'm so righteous and saintly and stuff.
Yeah.
I would guess that you could do it because you're not actually eating it, but I don't know. I'm not gonna risk judgment over making a bad fatwa or something like that over something silly like that.
Yeah, but plus, I mean, would you have to follow the rules for any other game too, or any other type of action?
Right.
You can't play a game where you're a hitman or something, or can't play Call of Duty.
And I don't know how you acquire pork in Minecraft. I've never played it, but if it's through slaughtering a pig, you would have to like do the halal slaughter, which you probably can't do. I mean, I guess you can't, like by definition, you can't do that on a pig anyways, but yeah. Is it immature to not want to date someone because they don't drink? I mean, this really depends, I think.
Yeah.
If it's not immature in your case, like I could see it being immature. Like you just want someone to just do all the stuff you like to do or whatever. But if it's not, and it's more like this is going to mean that our lifestyles are too different, like that it's not going to work. I think that's not immature, but that reflects kind of like maybe you should reconsider some things if you are finding yourself at a place where you can't have a relationship with someone if they're not consuming a certain drug because you consume it. That seems like that's not a good position to be in with that drug, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can get if you're like in your early 20s or something and you're partying a lot and you just want to be able to go to all the same parties and not just have them sitting there being like, can we go now? I kind of get that, but like,
sure.
But I feel like that's pretty much the definition of immature at some level. You know?
Right.
Like that's supposed to be something you kind of get through and then kind of move on with your life eventually. But
and there's no problem with that. You know, it's immature maybe, but like that's where you're at in life. That's okay. Like that's
yeah. But like I can get that though. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have that problem myself because I do not drink, so I solidarity send them my way.
Yeah. I mean, it's also the case though, like not everyone who doesn't drink is like just like a bummer at a party, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
people can be sober and still like not be like a drag, so
yeah. But they won't jump off the roof into a pool or something like that. So that's not cool. I don't know.
Yeah. Is Richard Dawkins gay? He looks so gay. Well, he's just British. That's kind of hard.
Yeah. Let's not be prejudiced against them where they can hear us in public. So,
yeah. It's got to be hard being a gay guy in Britain. It's just like constant false negatives everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It's funny. I still see him ever so often pop up here and there. And it's funny. This is one of my prejudices online is that I'm like, if like a lot of the jokes have already become stale about someone, you know, like if they've already basically been through the ringer to some extent, I'm kind of like, why are you still here?
Yeah.
As if they don't have like a life of their own. I'm just kind of like, wait, why are you all around?
Yeah.
We already talked about you. I don't know.
Yeah. He needs to start getting into that, like, remember when reality shows were having all these like celebs, like washed up celebs, like Vanilla Ice or whatever and stuff like that. I feel like he's at that stage. Like we need to get him on some sort of like The Bachelor show where he's like picking a wife or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to eat healthy, what fruits should I use to substitute sweets? I'm a big fan of bananas, by the way. I mean, bananas is a good option.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, to be honest, almost any fruit is going to be sweet. And one thing you can do is like cook them a little bit. And that will like caramelize the sugars in them and make them even sweeter. So I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to substitute here. Like if you're making a dessert or if it's like just a snack kind of a thing. But yeah, you could try that out. Like, you know, if you're baking something, like use less sugar and use more fruit that you've cooked somewhat and see how that goes. But yeah, good for you. That's a good, I support this plan.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have nothing really to offer here. Maybe apples. I like apples. I don't know.
I've been on a big apples kick lately. Been getting Honey Crisp apples.
Mm-hmm.
I intermittently get hit with a few hours of total ennui, apathy, and ambivalence about going on living. I normally snap out of it if I think about dinner, but sometimes dinner isn't enough. What is to be done for those souls such as I?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I always promote, I don't know, maybe think about one thing you want to do or a thing that you're happy about doing or that you could just have fun with or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I always try to, I try to snap myself out of thinking very short term or something like that. You know, like I try to think of something that I'm looking forward to in general or something like that. It can be something small, but like, you know, the point is that like you don't want black and white thinking a lot of the time, you know, where it's like nobody loves me, nobody cares, nobody whatever and stuff like that, or like, you know, getting or like nothing makes me happy anymore, nothing whatever, because it's probably not true. It's just a way of saying this feeling to me is very important or something, you know.
Yeah,
it's just you're just saying this is important to me, that I'm sad, this is important. But the annoying reality is a lot of the time is that like you might be like, I'm kind of annoyed by this part of my life or something, or I'm worried about this or something like that. And it's probably like a percentage amount, you know, it's not 100%. And if it's not 100%, then that really is something that you can kind of cling to, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. As far as like, I think what you said is really good advice for like self-talk or like how to kind of think through it. But like in terms of like things you can do, I would suggest some sort of hobby or something like that. Like have something going on in your life that is doesn't need to be productive. It doesn't need to be significant, you know, but just something that like feels good to do, that you enjoy doing. And you know, I know that's kind of easier said than done, but yeah, I don't know. It sounds like this could be the product of like being really bored or being lonely, maybe just like not having enough people in your life, that kind of a thing. And I think once you get some of that around you, then a lot of these things tend to kind of be like weaker. I'm not saying they go away, but they, you know, that kind of stuff helps.
Yeah, I think that, having things in your life is like that is true. I think the big thing with that is even just being out in public for a bit.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it's hard to do now, I guess, to some extent, but even just seeing other people around you. I used to go to movies a lot because of this, because I didn't really feel that comfortable going to many social situations, but I could like go to a movie or go to like a food court at like a mall or something, and you just be like around people kind of thing. And I think that's very, very healthy to some extent. It's like healing in a way. It makes it so that you remember that you're not alone to some extent. You're like, oh, these are like, there's lots of people out here. There's lots of people around me, kind of thing. And that, I don't know, that is helpful to like think through, because it somehow resets your brain a bit. It's kind of like being outside with like sun and stuff. Like there's something very, very deeply biological there, or something where just having people around sort of sometimes can help reset your sort of like because I mean, you have to think, if it is a self-talk thing to some extent, then you're probably, for most people, I mean, some people I can understand if they're in a terrible situation or something, but like for most people you're making some sort of mistake in thinking that by focusing too much on your own problems or something like that. So
Yeah, and those sorts of feelings and thoughts can be weirdly like narcissistic and kind of like it feeds a certain part of your ego that it's
sure.
And you're doing it, it's like not in a healthy way, like it's okay about like it's okay to feel like you are very important to yourself, obviously, like you don't want to downplay that, but you can overdo it and then you end up with issues like this sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, that's where the psychoanalytic thing, enjoy your symptom, kind of comes from, where it's you get like a certain type of joy or something out of returning to these same problems again and again, and like having the same thoughts. It's weird. It's like because the way that the brain works, I think it doesn't really distinguish to some extent, in like, especially if you're not healthy, between different types of signals, kind of thing, in a way that like something that causes you pain can cause you a certain type of enjoyment, in a way that like, or relief or something, like crying. And that's interesting because I mean, it helps explain why people have problems with like, say, like cutting or other types of like self-harm kind of stuff. It's because they can manage the pain themselves in a way, and I think you can use that psychoanalytic terms or just like kind of mainstream psychology to explain the same thing. But like, I think that's very true, where people, they get addicted to a certain type of symptom kind of thing. They get addicted to, or like not addicted, but like compulsed kind of thing, to return to the same types of problems again and again. And part of I think getting better to some extent is just recognizing that. It doesn't even have to be a matter of fixing it kind of thing a lot of the time. It's more like just recognizing that that's what you're doing. You're getting yourself into trouble again sometimes. So
it reminds me of the Nirvana lyric, I miss the comfort of being sad. You remember that one?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So I mean, we've got very, very strange brains. I don't know.
Yeah. Is it okay if somebody is gay, transgender, non-binary, if they don't make a big fuss about it? I don't think God makes mistakes in how we want to express ourselves, but also doesn't want us to be narcissists. I guess this is like asking from a religious perspective. So like the Islamic view on this is that the act is what is prohibited, not there's no identity, like there's no concept of like a gay identity or any of these things in Islam, although there are concepts of like in between, sort of like it's always going to be, there's male and female, but then there's an acknowledgement of like some people who it's not easy to tell which one they're supposed to be or which one they are, so some people are kind of in between, and there's ways of kind of that's been dealt with. And Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This person seems to have a kind of like the right idea, I think, in that making like a big public show about it, if you're trying to stick to these like traditional ideas about this stuff, is probably the best way to go about it. And I don't think God would punish you for having the characteristics that we would identify as being gay or transgender or anything like that. That's not something I've ever seen in any of the text or whatever that I've read about this kind of stuff, or any of like the reputable scholars that I've heard talk about this sort of stuff. They've always kind of said like there are certain things that are haram to do, but no one is like punished for being something. You know, God makes you a certain way, and He tests you in different ways, and it's not like you are just born as like a damned kind of a person. That's definitely not part of the Islamic perspective on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Catholic thing, I feel like I don't know a lot about the sort of theology of this kind of stuff on this side, so I don't really feel like confident talking about it a lot of the time. But like, I do think there's some sort of jumble there in the ideology, or like in the theology of Catholicism. There's some problem there in the way things have been portrayed or promoted throughout the church and stuff. Where so like the basic idea is that it's supposed to be is that there's something fundamentally disordered about gay sex and things like that, because it's like disconnected from procreation and marriage and all that kind of stuff, right? And there's very, very specific detailed opinions on all this kind of stuff that are considered very important to a lot of the bishops and all that kind of stuff, like in terms of their thinking on this kind of stuff, right? So so the thing is, I can kind of wrap my mind around like the reasons for that, but the thing is that at a certain point, the way that it ends up coming across is like almost concern trolling kind of thing, like it's because in theory, if you're saying the same things, you're also supposed to be equally against, or even, whatever, against like contraception and stuff, right? Or like certain things to do with premarital sex and all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, isn't that
like,
the church's position on that stuff?
That's what I mean, is that like in like theory and ideology and stuff, it's supposed to have some sort of equivalence to it. Now, it's supposed to be different, I think, to some extent, because one at least has some indirect connection to, theoretically, down the line or whatever, like procreation, all that kind of stuff, family unit and stuff. One is just sex for its own sake kind of thing in theory. But like the difference is that like it has gotten wrapped up in evangelical culture, or also just like sort of bigoted culture in a lot of ways, where it's turned into a club kind of thing to attack gay communities, when the mainstream of the Catholic Church in many other respects are just not following the rules when it comes to straight relationships too. You know what I mean? Like it becomes kind of a way of focusing anger at one community, when it's like, well, yeah, but either the entire society is basically off the rails on this kind of stuff, right? And you're only focusing the anger at like one section of that, or like something is wrong with the way that you're thinking through these problems. And we talked about this on the Giorgio Agamben episode, in a way, is that the problem is what the question of sainthood again. That's the thing. Like that's what it comes back to, is like it's not a question of what's good for the average person day to day living a normal life or something like that in our society or something like that. Like that's not really supposed to be what you're supposed to put in a moral textbook or something. What you're supposed to put in the textbook is what's the ideal thing that you should do if you were living the religion 100% of the way, all the way down, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, it's very hard to look at the Catholic tradition and point to at least how it's being inherited. It's hard to look at that and then say, okay, well, we are going to radically change all our opinions on sex because of, we got it wrong or something like that.
Sure.
Even just for even just for institutional reasons, whatever, like put those aside, just the theological thing. If you're saying we need to kind of rethink things because people aren't following the rules, it's kind of like, well, yeah, but weren't the rules from God kind of thing or something, you know, like isn't that supposed to be pretty fixed kind of thing? And I think there has been a bit of accommodation under Francis, and like some sort of pivot on that a bit from some priests, where it's like, you know, like Francis came out in favor of, you know, for same-sex couples, like civil contracts and stuff like that for marriage, like not having marriage in a church, but like still having, like, you know, allowing some sort of civil union guarantee for things. But the problem with that ideologically is that it's an analogy and not the substance of it, right? Like it's not, he's saying that, you know, these families are basically almost emulation of straight families, and therefore they should have some sort of recognition or something, which is not really the same thing as saying they are equivalent, right? So that is a problem I think that a lot of LGBT Catholics have with that kind of thing, is like, you know, it doesn't really fit the thing. Now, that the history of this kind of stuff is really important to me in a lot of ways, but like also because there were a lot of people, I think, that have had serious problems with the church in different ways throughout their lives, that basically leave for either nothing or for like the Episcopalian church or the equivalent, because other churches have been a lot better in terms of on these issues, I think. So so it's like, you know, it's also a matter of just being able to keep people feeling like they're at home there. So
yeah, it's a tricky subject with Muslims, at least from my perspective, because I find myself having, whoever I'm talking to, there's going to be some kind of, like, if I'm talking to someone who has like a non-Muslim who has like progressive kind of ideas, or just, I mean, they're not even progressive anymore, they're kind of just like the mainstream sort of ideas about this stuff. I find myself kind of in a defensive position where they sort of have this idea that Muslims are like virulently anti this and anti that in a way that is like necessarily like homophobic and just like bigoted and all that kind of stuff. And then you know, I'm talking to Muslims who have the, you know, like the traditional kind of orthodox view on this stuff, and you know, they will perhaps have those kind of bigoted views, or they'll kind of be motivated by a kind of bigotry, even if they're not necessarily taking like explicitly like a bigoted position necessarily. Like they might say the kind of things that you can get away with saying, where you're just sort of saying like, well, this is the traditional thing, we're not going to change it. And I agree with that. Like, I don't think you should just be changing stuff because people outside of the religion have changed their minds about something in the past 50 years. Like, I don't know if the religion should just change for that reason. But at the same time, I think that you have to reckon with the fact that, like, the way that people view this stuff now, it's not, it's probably not great on either side. Like, I don't think that people who are trying to bully religious groups into changing their ideas about stuff are motivated by, oh, just they're just so righteous and they just want justice for everybody. Like, it seems like there's bigotry at play there as well. And then on the other hand, people who are trying to defend the traditional view, or like at least the right of a religious group to define its own kind of terms and stuff and on how to deal with this, it seems like that can sometimes be an excuse to get away with bigotry and persecution and even like violence and stuff like that. So I don't know. I find it a very difficult conversation to have, no matter who I'm talking with. I know last time this came up and we made a clip about it, there was a lot of YouTube comments on it that were not happy with it. So
oh really? I can't remember that. Was it
they weren't posted immediately, but I was looking at the YouTube channel the other day and poking around the analytics and stuff, and noticed that one had a bunch of comments on it, so it must have gotten shared somewhere or something. And yeah, there were a lot of people with like Muslim kind of usernames and stuff that were telling us to go find a hobby. Was one comment that I thought was funny, because I was like, well, that
okay,
that's kind of what this is. But
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, in the end, I kind of feel like basically I don't have super strong opinions about this, but I do think like if you're not Muslim or whatever, you need to kind of back off and let Muslims sort of handle their own business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just people have this kind of a weird idea about they think everybody's like 2 steps away from ISIS and like rooftop kind of the rooftop method of dealing with these problems. So sure. If you actually want to see things kind of improve in a real way, you kind of have to let the religious group deal with it. You can't bully them. But on the other hand, like if you are part of a religious group, you sort of have to reckon with the fact that like even if it's not an ideal situation, like maybe you really do have this idea that like this is just like a perverted idea and it needs to go away. You have to reckon with history and stuff. Like I find it kind of funny that if you look back through history, and a lot of people are very well aware of this, but there's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on here where you can understand that in the Muslim world there's been a lot of poetry and art and just discourse around like homoerotic stuff where like men are expressing admiration in a very sexualized or romantic way for other men or for boys or whatever, and it was just sort of like it was very common. I'm not going to say it was like acceptable in the especially in like religious terms, but certainly was like tolerated far beyond like what some people would have you believe, and I'm not saying that means that that's what the religion actually taught or something like that, but I don't know what, we have to kind of reckon with what does that actually mean, and maybe we place so much emphasis on it because it kind of has a role in this like clash of civilizations narrative, and I think that whole thing is really poisonous for both sides. So I'd rather kind of downplay this whole thing more than anything else.
Sure. Yeah. So
basically, like, leave people alone if they are gay or trans or whatever. Like, it is what it is. The world is how it is. Muslims and Catholics or whatever, like, don't determine the social norms these days. It's other kind of things that do. So some people that have certain inclinations or whatever are going to find an identity that kind of fits them that is not something that we would maybe come up with ourselves. But that doesn't you don't need to have like these hyper negative feelings about it. You can just kind of, I don't know. There's a lot worse things going on in the world than to worry about that. Sure.
Yeah.
All right, this is a weird question. Why do people allude to murder in casual conversation, i.e., I'm going to kill this guy, he's so annoying, etc., but not rape? Murder is technically way worse than petty rape. I like this phrase, petty rape. That's funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. Good point. I think we should all start saying, I'm going to rape this guy, he's so annoying, a lot more. I think that would be... Just shake things up a little bit, try that shoe on for a little bit, see how it feels.
Yeah. We're going to get canceled again. Like they'll take down our thing. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think that it is interesting how certain things... I was looking at like old tweets by people where 10 years ago or something like that, they said something. And they using a lot of like... celebrities and stuff said a lot of things that they probably shouldn't have.
All those celebs.
And you can find them usually by doing filter : verified, and then look for the word, and then you can put like to put time limits on it and stuff like that too, to find ones before 2012 or something like that, usually because that's when the heyday of this stuff is. So, yeah. And you can sift through the tweets and find a lot of brands being like, I don't know, like Blockbuster being like, are you feeling retarded this weekend or something? All different great things like that. And Yeah, and if you feel like it, you can get them fired from their current jobs by doing that. So, yeah. So I think that if you look up I think a lot of rape jokes are out there, and you can find which ones are now current SNL stars and that, and have fun.
Babies, cute or secretly evil? I got a baby take, I guess. I don't find them cute actually until they are a little bit like a fresh newborn is not cute to me. It looks strange, but it's like it's a beautiful thing, but they are not like once they're like a year old or something, they kind of have that like the cuteness of like a little kid, you know. They kind of like have like some facial expression and stuff like that, I guess. Like a newborn baby looks like some kind of, it still looks like fetal, you know what I mean? Like it has a strange quality to it that I don't think I view them as like cute. Secretly evil is no, not secretly evil. I don't know, is that a weird impression of babies and newborns and stuff?
No, I think that's yeah, that makes sense to me. It's like they're somehow little mutants kind of thing, and you have to be aware that they might be somehow demonic, and yeah, you have to be kind of careful around them.
I just have the impression that they're like really wrinkly and pruny, like they've been in the tub. So I kind of have this idea that they've been in the womb for 9 months, you know. So it's like they've been in the bathtub for 9 months and they come out and they're all wrinkly.
Yeah,
maybe that's getting a little weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. One of our mutual friends just had a baby the other day, and yeah, good for him. You know who you are. Congrats. I'll just say, tiny tuna happened. How about that?
Tiny tuna happened, yeah.
All right, so let's wrap it up on that note. Thanks for listening, guys. If you'd like to hear a second episode of You Can't Win every week, you can subscribe to our Patreon, and you'll get that, as well as access to our Discord. And if you'd like to send us questions, you can check out our Twitter at YouCan'tWinPod and send questions to the Curious Cat. And yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye.